all tied up, and this first set is dead even.
Unbelievable combination.
Wow.
Beautifully done.
What a great spot.
Hello and welcome to the 2025-26 APTA Tour. We're live from the Hyde Park Golf and Country Club in Cincinnati, Ohio, bringing you the 2026 Midwesterns Grand Prix with live streaming brought to you by the APTA membership and our tour presenting sponsor, Coriant. Tournament support has also been provided by the following sponsors: our presenting sponsors, Duncan and the Greater Cincinnati Platform Tennis Association, local sponsors, Mercy Health, Roto-Rooter, Alta Fiber, Quintus Wealth Management Group, We Connect Health, Viking Athletics, High Grain Brewing, Total Platform, Plains Moving and Storage, True Point Wealth Council, River Hills Bank, Marymount Capital, Town Properties, Atlantic Sign Company, Stretch Lab, and Titan Trophies. I'm Steve Sullivan, along with Dave Broderick, bringing you this men's quarterfinal match between Jose Castro and Antonio Pejic, and our 6 seeds, Ethan Leone and Matt Muoio. Dave, welcome to the stream.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be here. We take a look at the players here. We have Jose Castro from Norwalk, Connecticut. He's Assistant Director of Rackets at Middlesex Club in Darien, Connecticut. And his partner, Antonio Pejic, is from Stamford, Connecticut, and he's the head tennis pro at the Menursing Club in New York. And they're taking on, as you had mentioned, Ethan Leone from Wilmington, Delaware, who's the Director of Paddle Tennis at the Waynesboro Country Club in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, and Matt Muoio from Westchester, Pennsylvania, who works at the Radley Run Country Club, also in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So if you look a little bit, Steve, just how these guys got here, you know, they both had a tough match in the last round. They both went 3 sets. Yeah,
there's you know, the upset right on one side of the draw. We talk about Christian and Vauclair, the 4 seeds here at the Midwesterns. Yeah, Castro and Pejic played a great match. You know, a little bit of back and forth win in, you know, the 3rd set, 6-4. And then, of course, Lofgren and Andrew Ong played a really good 3rd set, or not a great 3rd set, you know, end up going down 4-6, 6-2, 6-0 to Leone and Muoio. That's Ethan Leone serving near side to Jose Castro in the multicolor jacket and the deuce court. So yeah, this is you know, it's a Grand Prix. They're going to play through, I guess, tonight. They're going to play all the way into the semifinals and the finals tomorrow morning. So yeah, 1 more match to go. And you know, to me, Dave, it's really interesting this season seeing the team of Leone and Muoio being maybe the newcomer to sort of, you know, be competitive. They've played a really good season. They've proven to be a top 8 seed. There may be a, you know, like a 5th seed heading into nationals. But yeah, they've run into, just like a lot of teams, these top 3 behemoths of, you know, Salazar, Regalado, McNerney, Morgan. You know, obviously we have, you know, Nunez playing with Mark Powers is a, you know, one of the top teams, and then Grigorovich and Stojic. So these guys, I think, are knocking, and they've made a great push into the top of the game this year.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think Leone and Muoio have really stepped it up this year. You know, one of the things I think that'll make them even better is the more that they're in this situation playing against top teams, because they do play kind of a high-risk, high-reward type game, as we saw Muoio right in the beginning with the slash overhead to kind of get the party started. So, you know, I think as they become more seasoned and get used to when it's time to go for those shots and when maybe you hold back a little bit, because, again, high-risk, high-reward is also a little prone to making some unforced errors, and, you know, you definitely don't want them happening at timely points in the match.
Yeah, lots of tennis skills, but, you know, one of the interesting things about them, whether it's risk or reward or it's sort of creativity, you know, Matt Muoio, he's a little bit unorthodox. He's sort of, you know, he's dinking and blitzing. He's, you know, hitting a slash ground stroke, you know, to the net player. He's, you know, he does a lot of different things, but it's sort of interesting to see how they gel. Ethan Leone, on the other hand, has just every shot in the game, right? Huge credentials from his background, playing tennis. I think he was the #1 tennis player in New York growing up as a kid, played at SMU, so he's got, just big shots everywhere you look, and I think his paddle IQ is getting better and better.
Yeah, and again, from the experience, like even when you watch this earlier on, they're still, even with their net positioning, it looks like they're going to want Leon over there on the left side hitting the overheads, with Muoio being more on the right-hand side, taking a lot of the volleys. But, I think just for them to keep improving too, I think just their efficiency at the net can continue to improve. And I think the more they're on the court, that will improve for them. And Steve, I just want to remind everyone out there that is all this year in the men's tour. All matches will be no ad scoring. So if they get to deuce, the serving team will pick the side that they're going to serve to.
So Dave, you and I were both in Short Hills, called a couple matches that were probably feels like negative 15, 16, or 17. I think we have a balmy 42, 44 degrees, partly cloudy in Cincinnati. The game's playing hot, and I think just coming off of Short Hills, you can see there just really difficult to control, some of the big ground strokes. It's it's going to be a little bit of adjustment, but I think we're going to see a lot of firepower today. This is probably going to be a difficult for both teams to control the volleys, place the volleys, and stay out of danger from, the returning or baseline team. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this match develops and which teams sort of start swinging away first.
And it looks like they're all coming out kind of swinging, hitting the ball pretty hot. The one good thing is, for all the matches today from the men and women's side, it's at a really good temperature for a lot of spin and, hitting slash overheads and, slash drop shots. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, we already saw Matt Muoio pull one out earlier on in the match. So we'll see how that continues for both of these teams. And there you just see a missile from the Leon forehand. Steve, what do you think about, as these matches go later into the tournament, and obviously you're playing against all great players and they all have great skills, this looks like a little impatience over there. But what do you think about just maybe changing it up or looking for a little bit of deception if you're, especially on the baseline? And what I mean by that is, what do you think about the baseline team maybe lobbing a few more balls that they should probably drive, and maybe throwing in a couple of drives on balls that they would normally lob, but, really trying to create movement and openings instead of forcing it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that you tend to see from Muoio and Leon, especially Matt Muoio. He gets creative. He, head fakes and sort of the deceptive play. But the other challenge with hitting the big ground strokes in a day like today is it's going to come pretty hot off the back screen. So you may not be getting as much as you think in, 30-degree or below weather, certainly like they've played in the last few weeks. So, yeah, I like a little more patience, really making sure you get the one, and maybe it's more about the transition than it is the bomb. But, these guys have big ground strokes, so yeah, nice defense there from Ethan Leon, just putting that ball back over the net.
And we've seen it a few times already early on that Pejic really gets on top of that net to volley. Look at how close to the net he is. And I think when you're facing a drive like Leon has, you can't really be stuck standing in the middle of the service box. I think you really do have to get on top of that net. Like that.
Yeah, it forces, from a positioning perspective, Castro was playing a little bit defensive, protecting, right? Either the deep lob or the the positioning of Page as he goes that close, and Leon took advantage of it, right? Just sort of used his hands, took a ball at his feet, and then of course gave him a very difficult choice of where to hit the ball, and he just put it in the net. So yeah, this is a little bit of, I think since the beginning of the season, you're seeing, especially Ethan Leon, just keep getting better and better, and it's really at this level about shot selection and patience and sort of looking to win it on not the first ball every time, as maybe he has been with all those tennis skills from the last couple of years. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what sort of combination or point sort of structure that Page and Castro can put together that's going to give them sort of some ability to repeat, right? Rinse and repeat and put some points together.
Because, I mean, just after, if you look at it, just after the first two games, Leon's given them a couple of, layups from the net that I'm sure he's going to tighten those up as this match goes on. But, what I was going to say is that Muoio and Leon are really making it tough right now for Castro and Page to win points.
Yeah, a lot of movement there. Matt Muoio's got to take his medicine and give, Leon a chance to get, back into position there. But yeah, all credit to Page. You mentioned how close he gets to the net, but yeah, he's definitely looking for that hands battle.
You see there the creativity of Page and his movement. I like that. I think that could pay off for him. But I also like at the end there that play when he kind of blitzed and hit a few shots where he didn't force the play. He let the ball go. He let it go through. And, he's doing a really good job of picking and choosing his spots right now.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. I haven't seen a lot of Page. We haven't covered him a ton this season. In the live stream, there's that... I don't know if that's risk reward, but that is sometimes the thing you see from Matt Muoio, that he just tries to hit, unique cutters from any position, including on the serve. So, but no, I've been impressed so far. Page is giving Matt Muoio a little bit of his own medicine, and I think he's playing some sort of very textbook defense until he gets an opportunity, and then he's just sort of using his body.
Hey, Steve, just want to let everyone know out there and thank our sponsors again. Mercy Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, providing care worthy of the pros. From same-day or next-day appointments, after-hours care, and Saturday sports clinics, we have you covered with the expert care you need when you need it. To learn more, visit mercy.com/Cincinnati-orthopedics.com.
Yeah, both teams looking to move forward to take advantage of sort of some more handsy, pickly type points where they're looking for opportunities, and both teams are looking for it, and both teams sort of are appropriately deciding when to take their medicine and get out of there. So both Page and Matt Muoio, I think this is going to be an interesting sort of back and forth between these two.
And I think a question for them is, are they going to play patient enough?
Yeah, that one there, you can see he made the same play, but Castro was nowhere in an ability to cover that, right? And that's
a pretty good get and forehand there by Leon. I also think in that last hands battle, Page has to volley that ball back at Muoio. I think getting involved with Leon at the net could be a losing proposition. And again, Steve, we see Leon up at the net on the left-hand side hitting the majority of the overheads, and you have Matt Muoio over there on the right covering a little bit more of the net. All right,
Yeah,
Steve, that's the first deuce point there.
Yeah,
coming up.
first one. Yeah, I see them. They're competing on a couple balls. It looks like for the most part, that's a tough volley to miss. But yeah, first sudden deuce point goes to Leon and Muoio. You know, they're for the most part settling in their positioning at the net, but there's a couple where they're both sort of going, and you know, both Muoio and Leon love the swinging, rolling, you know, volley. So being in the right position, sort of not chasing too much, or in that case, moving back to your side of the court to hit that swing volley. Yeah, they're going to have to sort of get a little more consistent. I think that just died in the corner there.
And that's what I was kind of getting at earlier on with, you know, the more they play, their positioning and movement will get a little bit more efficient. You know, I think from watching this that, to your point, you know, I think there are times when their positioning at the net could be a little bit tighter as opposed to, you know, both of them covering the whole court. I think they can, on certain shots, they only need to cover 2/3 of the court. They can just kind of tighten up some of their positioning, and I think, you know, that's going to eliminate some of that, you know, fighting over or indecision as to whose ball it is. And it's interesting to watch Leon and Muoio on the baseline because they do it, you know, they both get to the finish line, kind of they both get to the finish line, but they do it sort of two different ways where, like, you know, Leon just bombs balls and, you know, has really good ground strokes, and Muoio is a little bit more sneaky. He places the ball, he mixes up the speed. So, you know, again, they both kind of get to the finish line, but they do it in definitely two different types of ways, and it's, you know, it's kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, nice replay here to see if we get this really nice cutter. It's a huge serve going almost to the side screen. Followed it up with a great cutter. Yeah, nice defense there. He got put in a really bad position by that up and down by Leon.
Well, and I think part of that came from Muoio moving that overhead from the ad side of the court over to the deuce side of the court. You know, again, if they want Leon hitting most of the overheads, you know, Muoio can just stay there at the net and let Leon kind of cover that.
All right, second sudden deuce, gets the nick on the serve.
All right, Steve, Corian. It's the official well sponsor of the APTA's 2025-2026 season. Corian is a fee-only wealth manager who puts their clients at the center of everything they do. Learn more at Corian.com.
Yeah, Leon and Muoio, they look relaxed. You know, we mentioned a couple loose balls. Leon's probably hit 3 or 4 loose unforced errors, some swinging volleys, a couple, you know, takes from the baseline, but they look really comfortable, right, and look really relaxed. Castro and Pejic are playing good paddle. They just, you know, they had those last 2 sudden deuce points, so obviously they could have gone either way. One, they get a nick, one, you know, a big return that Pejic couldn't keep the volley on his paddle. So It's a little bit closer than the scoreboard. Yeah, really nice wheels there by Matt Muoio.
Well, the other interesting part or factor to a 4-1 lead right now is that Muoio and Leon they're winning points. Like if we were to go and see how many unforced errors Castro and Pejic have, I bet you that number's not really that high. Like Leon and Muoio, like I said, they're winning points.
Yeah,
like that's the play again. Yeah, just, you know what? Let Leon take that. You know, it's like there's a little slippery forehand off the side back screen. I like it.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But look at that ball just come really hot off the back screen.
And Steve, I think when you look at the scheme that Muoio and Leon are looking to play,
I got you.
you know, I think Muoio is using those little, you know, tricky shots, you know, that you're not expecting, not really to hit winners, but just to kind of keep the other team on its toes, and also to, you know, to set up so Leon can come over and drop bombs with his forehand and backhand.
Yeah, really nice defense here. Yeah, like, I mean, they just worked in that point, right? They didn't try to do too much. A lot of different things happened. They got stuck a couple times and their partners bailed each other out. So, yeah, nice opportunity here to get the 31st in this game. Yeah, tough take there.
And Castro spotted that really well. He just, you know, it got away from him a little bit, I think.
How about that?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot you could do about that.
Yeah, really nice hands by Matt Muoio, and then just that killer by Ethan Leon.
You know, when you watch a shot like that, you really have to appreciate the skill required to do it, and also the nerve to do it. You know, it's a big stage of the match. It's a men's quarterfinal of a Grand Prix, and, you know, you're pulling that out because, look, every point counts. It's like, yeah, but they're up 5-1, 4-1, whatever the case may be, but Steve, we watch matches, you know, switch on a dime.
Yeah. And it's a tighter margin. We talked about the sudden deuce points. You can see the two by Leon and Muoio here. But, yeah, matches can turn quickly, and this is probably a little bit closer, maybe some of the unforced errors from Ethan Leon than it looks on the scoreboard. But, yeah, at the end of the day, it's a 5-1 deficit.
And I think, you know, tell me if you agree or what your thoughts are, but, you know, I think Castro and Pejic have to kind of keep fighting here and try to keep it close because, I mean, you look at Muoio and Leon, and I feel like the more relaxed they get, they have less of a conscience on the shots that they're going to hit, and they actually execute them really well. You know, I think if you let them get too far in front and you let them sort of, you know, go freestyle paddle, I think you could be in for you know, a short afternoon.
Yeah, and we talked about that cutter a couple points ago by Leon. You know, it takes guts and, you know, presence and confidence, right? So when you get confidence, it's really nice hands in that backhand there by Leon. But once you get confidence and maybe your shot selection frees up and your execution is relaxed, like really bad things can happen.
Right.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, this team plays sort of, oh, there's a nice tweener there. Wow.
Like you watch that point, I mean, Leon's just feeling it. He's feeling it.
Yeah, he can hit a spot too, can he? But that's just a beautiful execution. That high backhand, it hurts my shoulder to watch it, but he just killed that ball.
You know, as we always talk about, you know, when we're doing this commentating, we don't really root for one team or another, but I mean, you look at that last point and you kind of had to be rooting for Leon to, like, he deserved to win that point.
Yeah.
I think for Castro and Page at this point of the match, that I think they've got to figure out a way to keep a little bit of pressure on and not just let Leon and Muoio, you know, doing whatever they want, kind of hitting whatever they shot they want, and really putting a lot of pressure on them. So, you know, I think it's a little bit of a fine line here between, well, let him hit another ball, and you know what, okay, we've got to try to do a little bit of something with it, as we see right there.
Yeah, nice, difficult ball to play there. Castro got stuck, but yeah, Leon just sort of stays home and hits it to the open court.
And I think if you're out there, you know, watching and saying, well, that ball kind of bounced up kind of high, you know, what happened? It's all about the spin. The spin is, you can't, you know, you can't see, you don't know what it's going to do. So that's what makes it hard. It's not that the ball was kind of high and short in the court. It's just that the spin is so unpredictable that you can't really figure out what you're going to do and do something big on that shot. Like, the spin almost turns it into a defensive shot.
Absolutely, yeah. Nice game. Castro and Page just sort of grinded out through that game, and yeah, I think they got a couple. You know, that last shot, Matt Muoio, the energy of that point was something he should have let dissipate. I think he sort of tried to amp it up of, you know, a couple transitions and some hands battles that, you know, separated. But, you know, that's what I think you want to get to if you're Page and Castro. You know, they're going to hit the big balls. They're going to hit the cutter winners. Stay in the points, right, and give yourselves opportunities because, yeah, it's a little bit closer than the scoreboard. 55% to 45% on the total points, you know, is not excessive, right? It's not what 5-1 or now 5-2, you know, typically would look like. So, yeah, there you go, another unforced error.
Well, you look at it, the score is 5-2, but Castro and Page have only won 3 less points.
Yeah.
Now 4.
Yeah, that's a huge forehand that just has so much shape to it, right? There's just, you know, when you're at the net and you have to defend that ground stroke and you know how big he can hit it and how many different places he can hit it, yeah, that really heavy dipping ground stroke is, yeah, really nice look, nice camera angle here.
Yeah, and he spotted that last one really well. He kind of, you know, he didn't just hit it right at someone. He, you know, like you said, he put some good shape on it, got that ball dipping, running away a little bit, and it, you know, it's really made it for a difficult volley.
Yeah, they chase that same ball. The beginning of that, unbelievable movement. You know, we saw Page move, Poach go to the other side, and just get the hell out of the way of that ball and sort of leave it for Castro, which is the right thing to do, right? If it's on your paddle, play it. If it's not on your paddle, especially in these temps, let that thing go through. And, yeah, nice point all the way around. But yeah, nice to see 5-3, tighten this setup a little bit.
And again, I think right now it just comes down to the two no-ad sudden deuce points.
Yeah, and one was a nick, right?
Yeah, on a serve.
Yeah, they win that point, and we're at 4-all.
Wow, those are good
just,
hands by
those are
Leon.
just good hands.
I mean, it's good anticipation to get on top of the net, and then it's another thing to make that volley. Good hands. Look at this anticipation.
Yeah, the interesting thing was it was after the first one, and he didn't really have his racket set up anywhere, and he just sort of found a way to get it, and that's it's impressive hands there by. Wow. Third cutter winner. And each one's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, no. And I think, Steve, to add on to your point from earlier on, if you're Castro and Pejic, again, those shots, if they hit them, there's nothing you can do about them, but you can't let it affect the rest of your game. And I think they're doing a really good job of kind of, sticking with that mindset of, what, if they're going to go for them and hit winners, there's not a lot we can do about it, but, we kind of have to take care of our job and not give away a lot of free points.
I'd love, let's take another look at that one. So hitting that down up as it's going up just generates like the double spin, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can time it, it's almost an unreturnable shot.
It kind of almost spun back, like sideways backwards.
Yeah.
Team Muoio, they won the first set 6-3.
All right. So that's a set, and we are going to take a break here. So yeah, we'll be right back after these messages from the APTA with live streaming by CSM Media Streambox Labs with match statistics provided by Court Director.
A lot of founders start out with an idea, maybe in a garage, in a shared workspace, and really being a co-pilot along that whole journey from ideation to execution to maybe monetization one day is really the role we've decided to take in the marketplace. So I feel like we have really found a part of the market and offering that just really hasn't existed. It's this coaching, it's therapy, it's co-piloting on a journey that is unique.
We don't have time to get into all the reasons you may need urgent care. There's coughing, wheezing, itchy rashes, unpleasant infections, twists and rolls, cold and flu, tummies too. But at Mercy Health Urgent Care, we always have the time to give you exceptional, convenient care, because here you can get in and out in about an hour. Mercy Health Urgent Care, exceptional care made for you.
Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon your toilet will clog again.
What if it won't flush?
We'll always repair it.
Nobody puts baby in a flooded corner.
Maybe I should still fix it.
You had me at hello. We've got same-day service.
Plumbing completes me.
All right, welcome back to the APTA Tour. I'm Steve Sullivan here with Dave Broderick at Hyde Park Golf and Country Club with this men's quarterfinal match, Castro and Pejic versus our 6 seeds, Leon and Muoio. Leon and Muoio took the first set 6-3. We talked about it, Dave, in the first set. It felt a little closer. Some of the statistics looked a little closer. Yeah, that's unfortunately the right spot, and Castro just couldn't get out of the way. But the second set's going to be interesting. I think Pejic and Castro have something to give here. Yeah, like the little cat and mouse there. What do you think? What did you see in that first set?
Yeah, again, we talked about it when we were doing a commercial break that, a point here, a point there, and Castro Pejic could have actually they could have won the set 6-3. So I think it was a very close match. I think, again, when we were looking at the stats brought to us by Court Director before the points, where I would have to say that the, Muoio and Leon may have won 2-3 more points in the first set at the absolute max. But yeah, it was kind of a fun set to watch. I mean, a lot of great shots, a lot of running around, a lot of, a little bit of unorthodox play. But, it was definitely a fun set. And again, and it was a lot closer. That set, Castro and Pejic could have won that first set as well.
Yeah, this is the one thing, and we'll take a look at this replay here, that we said early on. Both teams are likely going to play. Unbelievable hands there by Jose Castro. They're going to play, right? They're going to use offense. They're not going to be overly patient, but, at some point you'd expect, just a couple loose, quick game and a couple loose shots there. You'd expect Muoio and Leon to figure out how to sort of lock it in, right? And be more selective when they go for certain shots, be more selective on, the big ground strokes or, whatever it is. So, I'm looking for them to sort of raise their game as well. But, nice start by Castro and Pejic.
And Steve, just to remind everyone, if they're just tuning in, up at the net on the right-hand side with the blue headband from Wilmington, Delaware, is Ethan Leon. And in the blue or black sweatpants and the gray top on the left-hand side of your screen, just hitting the ball now, is Matt Muoio from Westchester, Pennsylvania. And their opponents on the baseline to the left of your screen in the deuce side of the court with the blue hat is Antonio Page out of Stamford, Connecticut. And his partner in the red shirt on the right of your screen at the net right now is Jose Castro from Norwalk, Connecticut. I'll tell you, Steve, we're here at the Midwesterns. It's the last Grand Prix of the season. But, the season is far from over. We have and all of the registrations are open for all the events that are coming up. We have Junior Nationals February 28th in Summit, New Jersey, followed by the APTA Men's and Women's National Championships March 6th, 7th, and 8th in Summit, New Jersey, hosted at a Canoe Brook Country Club. We also have the APTA Men's and Women's Masters Nationals featuring draws for men and women in the age brackets 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus, March 6th, 7th in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. And then a couple more events. We have the Team Nationals for the men, March 28th and 29th in New Jersey. And we have the Team Nationals for the women, April 11th and 12th in Chicago. And we have the Married Mixed and Mixed Nationals, April 18th and 19th, also in Chicago. So even though this is our last Grand Prix, the season is far from over.
Yeah, I think this is the part of the season that the players and, of course, the spectators get, treated to a lot of exciting paddle, culminating, with one of the big events as Team Nationals. I know that's typically a favorite, both players of all levels. And I think the Canoe Brook hosting of Nationals and some of those other events coming up is going to be it's going to be a big finish. I think there's a lot of excitement from these teams as well. We're looking for Leon and Muoio maybe to make a splash. Can they break in, to get to a semifinals and Nationals? And there's some exciting things on the women's side as well. So lots more paddle to come.
Hey, Steve, the only thing, if they can call timeout and ask me for my 2 cents, if you're Castro and Pejic, I probably would have them drive the balls they're driving, lob the balls they're lobbing, but maybe aim down the middle of the court a little bit more.
Yeah, with newer teams and teams that haven't and I'd say, Leon's a little newer to the game than Muoio. You want them thinking about or competing for balls down the middle, right? And that's, down the middle solves the riddle. Like, there's always a little bit of an opportunity that something can go wrong from the team defending. So I think it's always the right approach to get, they've stayed in points longer. You know, they sort of had a couple games get away from him early in the match, but yeah, I think you've gotten unforced errors mostly off the paddle of Leon, and yeah, I don't think it's about finding the way to win every point. Part of it's just sort of staying in and withstanding some of those barrages of offense.
Right, and I think the shot capability of Muoio and Leon is so good that, the balls down the middle, like to your point, let him fight over them. Because again, they both have unbelievable abilities to hit all sorts of shots. I think the more you can keep that ball in the middle of the court, maybe if you just get him to think or pause just for a second, that could turn out being the difference at the end of this match. Really
Great
good job
spot
there by Muoio closing the net.
And that team of Leon and Muoio, you saw a few of those Matt Muoio inside out push rollers, like those softies to the place that maybe the defender's not looking for it, are just so much more effective at 35, 30, 25 degrees. So the balls, it feels like fall or spring paddle a little bit today compared to what these teams have been playing against. So yeah, maybe a little bit tougher for Muoio and Leon to win some of those points that they're probably been accustomed to over the last month or so. There it is, right? Use the middle and then make them hit a shot. Power and finesse. Yeah. Really nice point there.
And I think, this is sort of an equal suggestion for both teams, is that in transition, you have to really think about driving the ball, because both teams are getting so close to the net, especially in transition, that the drive off the back screen's not really tricking anyone, and it's setting the team that lobbed the ball over the head, or the transition team up. It's actually setting them up to win volley winners.
Yeah.
So we see there Muoio with a good, like I kind of talked about earlier on, where, that looked like a drivable ball. Page did everything that he should have by closing in, and he decided to throw up a lob, and he was able to get the mistake from Page. Who knows, maybe next time Page doesn't get on top of the net, and now Muoio has a channel to drive that ball to.
Yep. All right, quick score update, Dave. Yeah, nice move there by Ethan Leon. We have a set point. Murphy Schneider up 5-3 against McNerney Morgan, a set point, but also a sudden deuce point. And then in another quarterfinal, we have Grigorovich and Stojic taking the first set 7-5 against Hansen and Taylor. All right, going back to Leon. Yeah, I don't love the call, even though sometimes you want to go back to the guy that missed it. That down the line backhand, he's got such a simple takeaway, like, a little bit like a Djokovic, but his backhand is so smooth. Yeah, it's a little bit of recency bias, right? He misses it and you say go back to it. I think there's a lot more Leon can do to hurt you than Muoio, and it paid.
Yep. Steve, we just want to remind everyone out there, Alta Fiber, if you want internet that's fast, reliable, and affordable, the choice is easy. Make the switch to Alta Fiber and get up to 6 gig speeds and 99.99% reliability. Alta Fiber. If we look at the, Leon and Muoio taking a little bit of a separation in the points won, and And again, it's interesting because the match is still super close here.
Yeah, 3. I think that was just our 3rd sudden deuce point, all going to Leon and Muoio. But they're giving up, you know, a few sort of series of unforced errors. So it's encouraging if you're Page and Castro, right? This is not complete one-way traffic.
So, Steve, if you go back to that last sudden deuce point, was that a tactical mistake or a physical mistake?
I mean, it's tactical, right? You sometimes want to pre-think through those decisions. Like when you go out, you flip the racket, know where the sun is, know who's serving first, you know, whether you have a lefty or righty, you sort of know how some of those decisions are going to make. When you get to sudden deuce, I think you should know plan A. Now, the match may develop and create a weakness or an opportunity that you're going to capitalize on, and you may make different decisions. To me, I think they got sucked into a pretty bad return by Leon at the 40-30 point, which was not typical. They went right back to it, and he's got this really soft way of holding his paddle and hitting these down the line, unexpected shots. And yeah, he, you know, one ball to transition and get the net and forced an error. So I think, I mean, yeah, to me it's a tactical, just not thoughtful of where to go. They maybe should have taken a second. It's a big point, right? And he walked right up to the line and served it.
And again, I think, you know, at this stage of the tournament, this stage of the match, if you're watching this, I mean, Leon has to miss 5 returns in a row before you can even think about hitting it to him.
Yeah. And it's nothing against Matt Muoio, but
no, super solid return, and you know,
he's not going to hit the big return. He's not going to punish you with it. He's going to trick you with it, right? He's a little more sloppy with his ground strokes. He can be very effective, but
as we see right there.
Yeah, just very creative, very sort of innovative in how he sort of constructs some of these points. But yeah, that's what Leon can do.
Right. And one of the things that I've been noticing, and you know, what would also make me question, you know, serving to Leon is Leon's actually hit returns and taken over the net on probably the majority of his returns.
Yeah. Just like there, right? He has this ability to either hit it very effectively cross court or go behind the net player down the line, whether it's the first ball or the second ball. So yeah, just a very easy to sort of second guess and be a little bit of a sofa, you know, quarterback here.
Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah. Easy for us.
So this is 3 points in a row that Leon has taken over the net. Now, forget everything else, but all right, we have another sudden deuce point in there going to Matt Muoio. Watch, Muoio's going to hit a winner here.
No, I like the eye as well.
What volleys.
What volleys, and a nice dig there. You just got to withstand it if you're Page and Castro.
And again, just to point out, the barrage of forehands from Leon was all set up by Muoio hitting a forehand himself earlier on in that point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, nice communication. Interesting. Castro stayed out of position, but in a way it made it simpler to know what Page had to do to sort of chase that ball down. Sometimes two people end up running and chasing for the same ball, and it becomes a little chaotic. So again, sudden deuce here.
And I think, again, you know, this is kind of an observation for both teams, where both of these teams, again, I think they do a really good job of anticipating. That's some touch
what?
right there. Wow.
What an unreal hands touch drop shot when he's getting blitzed. Bang. I mean, that's the shot of the match.
Pretty good, yeah.
That's the shot of the match. I mean,
all right.
Yeah, sorry, but go ahead, Dave.
I just want to tell everyone about Roto-Rooter. With its world headquarters right here in downtown Cincinnati, Roto-Rooter has been a dedicated sponsor of the Midwesterns tournament for the past 12 years. Roto-Rooter is North America's largest provider of residential and commercial plumbing and water cleanup services. Special thanks to APTA member and Roto-Rooter president, Robert Goldschmidt, and his team for their loyal support.
Yeah, it's, not getting in the way of Roto-Rooter in that read, but wow, it's sort of a tough sort of point to sort of go back and think about how it was constructed and how Leon ended it as he's getting blitzed. Castro was absolutely flat-footed.
Right,
now, you could say, should he have been moving forward as well? But at some point, when somebody goes all in on a blitz, you have to think about being a teammate, right? And defending behind, defending back. Yeah, that's presence of mind and just patience to hit that shot. Wow.
And I think this is a good example in this match, kind of to add on to my point from earlier, that, you have to really be careful about when you're driving with both of these teams, because, maybe you instead of driving the first opportunity, because they're doing such a good job of anticipating and crashing the net, that, maybe you have to lob a few more balls to soften them up a little bit. But this is also a good example of, in this match, where for both teams, you've got to be careful with the half speed or off-pace drive, because again, they're getting so close to the net and they have the unbelievable ability to hit phenomenal shots.
Dave, I'm not sure if you heard that crowd noise for what is just a 15:30 in the first game, but the local team, Fraser and West, Cincinnati locals, took the court against Nunez Salazar, so that's the last quarterfinal to take the court. Just getting going.
And Steve, earlier on you mentioned Schneider and Murphy, and I got to do one of their matches at Short Hills against Burrish and Adoya. And, again, I've watched them a decent amount this year, and they're a super solid team. And, they played really well. It's just at Short Hills they kind of ran into a hot Burrish and Adoya.
Yeah, tough team. They did take the first set 6-3. McNerney Morgan serving up 1-love. Yeah, that's, Ronnie Schneider, college tennis at UNC, playing with a venerable, sort of more experienced Tom Murphy. I like the pairing. Yeah, that's that second serve that Leon's hit that sort of half nicked and died in the corner.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's had a couple of aces.
Yeah.
There we see again the team of Matt Muoio and Ethan Leon switching at the net to get Leon over there on the left-hand side, hitting a lot of the overheads, with Muoio staying to the right, hitting a lot more of the volleys.
Yeah, Antonio Page is really looking, you can see his feet, looking for opportunities to move forward.
Well placed overhead there by
Yep.
Castro.
All right, here we go again. Sudden deuce. Got one.
There's the warm weather. Came back to bite them a little bit.
And I lost a little bit of focus there. We could hear the other court, and the announcer yelling, Regalado Salazar. It is actually Guillermo Nunez and Salazar playing that quarterfinal match against Tyler Frazier and Eric West. So I'm sure there's a correction being relayed to the umpire there. But, yeah, so they got that. Is that their first sudden deuce of the match?
It is.
Yeah. There it is, 4-1.
And again, you look at the points. It's 2-point difference in this match. And you see on the top of your screen, Page and Castro switching sides on the baseline when they're back there. And you know, again, who knows what the strategy? I mean, they're both great players, but you know what? Maybe it's just showing them a different look. Maybe Castro's seeing the ball a little bit better out of that ad side of the court. Maybe Page is, you know, able to create more opportunities and move around a little bit more out of the deuce side of the court.
Probably the right time to try that shot. Just couldn't get it over the net.
And I think you also have to, you know, for Castro, that he knows how fast Muoio and Leon are. So maybe you just try to do it, make it a little bit too good. But it looks like he may be able to get out of this game without that harming them.
I can't believe it.
So it's a little bit, Dave, what we talked about. Stay close. There you go. 40. The points differential in favor of Castro and Page. But, you know, stay close, stay in points. They got, even in the first set, streaks of unforced errors, and they did right as well there. So they stayed close. They finally got the one sudden deuce point to win the game, and then they get another series of unforced errors, and now they're leading the match, or the lead in the second set anyway. So.
Yeah.
That underhand serve seems like you just want to tattoo it every time. But Matt Muoio has the ability to keep it so low that it's, you know, and he's charging the net, right?
Right,
so,
and he's also getting in pretty quickly. You know, if you're the returner, you really have to be careful with it because, you know, you really have to spot it well, and you can't just try to haul off on it. Hey, Steve, the other thing we're seeing here in the second set, or we're not seeing it, is, you know, Leon and Muoio just hitting flat-out winners.
Yeah, it seems like maybe there's a little bit of predictability. They've stayed home a few times where they were getting backdoored, you know, at the net from some of the ground strokes from especially Leon in the early parts of the match. So yeah, they're either picking up on some of the rhythm or in the shot selection of Ethan and Matt Muoio, but look, they're up 4-3 and they got the advantage in this game. So yeah, all credit to them. what a get.
Yes! They lead the first set 2 games.
I tell you what, Castro's hit a couple masterclass defensive shots here.
Yeah, those were not easy gets.
Yeah, nice camera angle here. And that Castro backhand, he didn't go for everything, right? He's sort of like a 75%. Turned his shoulders really well. Let the ball come to him.
Thank you. You up.
Both teams absolutely locked in. There's a nick there.
Hey, this is definitely the longest point of the match.
Yeah, really, like both teams, how they're playing this point. Yeah, he missed it. What a point. What a point. Obviously the point of the match. Both teams, the offense was great, the defending was great, the sort of the variability of shot selection. Yeah, really impressive point by both teams. Triple break point. Oh, you gotta give him a chance. You give him a chance. All right. Double break point. Oh, goodness. Where'd he go? Yeah, I agree. You go right back to Page. Two really sort of loose ground strokes.
That's a big hold right there.
I mean, it was a 100-point rally, and then it was three points with a combined 9 balls. Just a really unfortunate series of errors there by Page. But yeah, honestly, a great game. Some of the, best defending I've seen all match from them. And let's see if it gives Muoio and Leon a little bit of confidence, because I think they were looking down the barrel.
Yeah, if Castro and Page win that game, we're looking at a way different set here.
Right, and the challenge for them now is mentally resetting, and it's very difficult for them to realize what got them to 40-15 and the type of play. I think they're nicely here leaning back into a steady, patient point. But yeah, they did everything right, and then it was just sort of a very quick momentum shift of 3 quick errors. Great ball. I like the eye against Muoio here in the deuce side. Wow, gets nutmegged. I think he left it well. I think Leon couldn't see it coming through. Really big backhand, and yeah, but Muoio moved forward at just the same time as Page and Castro moved forward.
How about this coming back? Steve, if you're Castro and Page, do you kind of have to win this game on this point?
Well, now they have 4, right? This quadruple game point with our scoring system. I feel like, yeah, you want to be nowhere near 40-30 in this game.
Well, only because, you know what? They had several opportunities last game. They let them slip, and it's like, if they lose this point, do they start thinking about, here we go again?
Yeah, for sure. They're thankfully playing a really nice, patient point here, putting the pressure on Muoio and Leon to make something happen. There it is.
Game Castro pass. They lead the second set 5-4.
It's
Yeah,
just
I mean,
good battle. Yeah, good battle.
No. Obviously, at this stage of the game, every point, every game is, you know, important to win. But I just, like I said earlier, you know, I thought Castro and Page really needed to win that point and that game relatively, I don't want to say quickly, but they didn't want to play a couple of points to start letting doubt creep in.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a mental game. The way points in games go and the opportunities, especially when they look at the statistics and see the sudden deuce point statistics, they're going to sort of realize that this match may have been a little bit closer than they thought at times. But at the end of the day, they're playing really well. They've limited their mistakes. They've changed up a couple things. They've moved around a little bit more. The balls that were getting through in the first set and a half stopped getting through.
You know, and I think the one trap also, if you're Castro and Page coming into this game being up 5-4, is that, again, you know, you have to forget about the 4-3 game and just, you know what, just play this game and go from here, because, you know, you could fall into that trap of, if we would have just won one of those points, this set would have been over.
Yeah, you see Matt Muoio a little bit of a tough shot selection and dejected. Then Ethan Leon follows it with a fault. So, yeah, you need to capitalize.
I'll tell you, Steve, this is the first time we've really seen Leon and Muoio a little impatient and sort of out of their rhythm. Steve, I want you to keep that return of serve in the back of your mind.
Oh, yeah, what hand? What hand?
Oh, my God.
Did he get him? He didn't get him.
No.
And Page has some soft hands. He has this ability to just sort of stay into some of these points with some really soft balls.
Steve, I'll tell you what, if nothing else, we've seen some amazing action-packed points with the skills and the shot making of all four of these players.
Yeah, it was a good ball. He went to the right place. It's tougher on the forehand, right? And he just got, I think when you're a little tentative, you could see the contact point was just a little bit behind his, body and his shoulder. And of course, that, you can't control it from back there when it's coming so hard. So, all right. Double set point now.
Steve, you still thinking about that return of serve? It's amazing how stuff like that, sometimes it can come back and really, love 40. You missed the return, not a big deal, but you know what? Again, as it starts getting deeper in the tournament, deeper in the matches, like every shot's a big deal.
Yeah, the 40-30 point has been one of the most interesting sort of point dynamics that we've seen with a new scoring. Sudden deuce is obviously what it is, but especially for the team that's up 40 love, 40-15, getting to 40-30 is a really awkward place to be in a way. But yeah, so far, Page and Castro are playing the point fairly patiently.
By the way, in the middle of that point, Page made an outstanding get off a ball from Muoio in the nick.
Yeah.
Steve, it's interesting because Castro and Page are not switching on the baseline in this scenario here.
Yeah, I thought Page was going to get himself into trouble there, but he's...
Yeah.
Oh, there, yeah, a little bit of competition there for that ball. Oh, goodness. Yeah. I'm not sure it was clean, but it was right. And it was just a huge set to come back. Obviously, Castro and Page, all credit to them. So
what do
we'll
they say?
Right back.
There were no pictures on the scorecard.
There you go. We'll be right back in just a moment after these messages right here on the APTA YouTube channel with live streaming by CSM Media and Streambox Labs and match statistics provided by Court Director.
At Corient, wealth management begins and ends with you. We believe the more personal the solution, the more powerful the result. We treat your goals as our own. We never lose focus on the life you want to build. And our experienced advisors design custom-built strategies to help you get there. It's time for a wealth management experience as sophisticated as you are. It's time for Corient.
Welcome back to the APTA Tour. I'm Steve Sullivan here with Dave Broderick with this men's quarterfinal match at Hyde Park Golf and Country Club. Yeah, Castro and Page, Dave, they turned it around. There were a couple opportunities that they could have made it a little bit more decisive, right? They had a big lead in the game. They let it up, but they then sort of just dug deep and have been played really good paddle. You see the statistics here. The point differential has sort of slid the other way very quickly. Now a 6-point differential towards Castro and Page. And again, one of these interesting matches where the sudden deuce metric is one-sided the other way. But yeah, all credit to Castro and Page. What'd you see? I think we need to get comfortable for a little bit.
Yeah, no, again, we talked about it earlier on, even when Castro and Page were down 5-1 in the first set. And, they kind of came back a little bit just by, steadying it up a little bit and just by keeping it close, not giving away a lot of free points. And, I think a big thing in that second set was that, again, they kept a lot of pressure. They kept a lot of balls in play. They didn't make a lot of unforced errors. But I think they managed to take away the ability for Leon to hit winners. Like I thought in the first set, Leon kind of, they won that set based on a lot of the shots that he hit. He ended a lot of points at big moments, and I thought that was a difference. But, we said it earlier on that Castro and Page still could have won that first set, despite losing it 6-3. They lost both sudden deuce points in the first set. Leon and Muoio hit some amazing shots to help themselves win it. So it's not a surprise that they won this second set. But it'll be interesting to see if they can just, again, hang around, because that's kind of what they did. They didn't, they do the, I would say, the less fancy shot making of the two teams, but they're hitting great shots, solid shots, and, they're keeping themselves in it to have the ability to win big points.
I mean, and the defense is just 10 out of 10, staying in some points that they should have, had no business staying in. So both Castro and Page, some really nice sort of take your medicine, put a racket on the paddle and get it back into the court. And yeah, they're playing well, but yeah, all the credit to them, really. And I like the break. If I'm Leon and Muoio, I'm leaving the court as well. Yeah, so we can see court director, some score updates flashing up on the board. We have the other quarterfinal matches playing. Here's a live look. Fraser West down 4-1. And we talked a little bit about Murphy, Schneider, McNerney, Morgan. Let's see what the score is there. And yeah, 3-2. So that's still a tight match. And Hansen and Taylor fall to Grigorovich and Stojic in a 7-5, 7-5 match there. Yeah, I'm probably going to leave the court if I'm Matt Muoio and Ethan Leon. I'm going to sort of just get my mind right, sort of let it go. This is, I think, a big set for them and a big event for them to sort of show they are one of these top potential, 5 teams that's going to compete for a semifinal spot at the Nationals. So, yeah, I don't know how to call it. I think Castro and Page have sort of outplayed them for, the last 30 minutes.
They certainly sort of were they definitely played better in the second half of that second set, the last couple of games. So I think this is a really good decision, whether it's on purpose or not, from Leon and Muoio to, just try to stop some of the momentum, because right now I think Castro and Page have all the momentum. Unfortunately for them, it kind of happened at the end of the second set. And it'll be interesting to see if they can regain that momentum that has led them to winning this second set. But I definitely think, and I don't know what your thoughts are, Steve, but, I thought in the second set, Castro and Page were really able to neutralize Ethan Leon. Like, I think they, in the first set, I thought, again, again, this is not, one-sided conversation. Matt Muoio is playing amazing throughout this match as well, but I just thought Ethan Leon was, he was moving more in the first set. He was, freer. He felt more confident, where, I think Castro and Page have done a good job of picking and choosing when they're going to let him get involved in the play.
Yeah, those, they were getting, Leon was hitting behind them, right? We talked about those returns where he was either through a cross court or down the line taking over the net as a returner very quickly. But there was a lot of those shots that it looked like they didn't see coming. They were a little surprised. It looked very clean and smooth from Leon. And they sort of just started staying home a little bit, right? There was maybe a little less poaching, a little less movement at the net. Page at the beginning may have looked a little chaotic, right? A lot of weird, blitzing that didn't pay off, a whole heck of a lot. But, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if Muoio and Leon, especially Leon, can sort of turn his game around and, yeah, generate some offense.
And I think to add to your point just there, we saw Leon hit his return down the line, which was working to a point, but I think Pejic is staying home more. So, you know, if you're Leon, maybe look to go and hit some more cross-court returns here.
Yeah.
I think also, you know, Steve, you got to give credit to Castro and Pejic because I think they've really changed the tempo of this match. They've kind of drawn out the points a little bit more. They've slowed the tempo down a little bit. So I think you have to give them credit as well for, recognizing that maybe the points were going too fast and, they really kind of slowed things down a little bit.
Yeah, I mentioned before, Pejic was really quick in the first set to look for opportunities to blitz, to move forward, a little bit of happy feet, which I think, have slowed down a little bit, and he's done it more opportunistically than repeatedly, right? Where in the first set, I saw he's trying to sort of out-dink and blitz Matt Muoio in the first set, and now it's been a little bit more sort of intentional, timed a little bit better, less frequent, which I think, creates more of an element of surprise. But yeah, it feels like a really interesting first game for them to get off to a quick start, because we have seen a little bit, our colleague likes to say that hangdog from a team. Muoio and Leon looked dejected, right? I think they were frustrated that, they let that match in the second set get away from them. So, this is a pretty important, if Pejic and Castro can get this first game and maybe get a quick start, it puts all the pressure on Leon and Muoio to make something happen, which is never the place you want to be.
40-30.
Big game point here. That's.
And again, I think if we talk about it, going from early on to now, where, earlier on, Leon wasn't missing those shots, those overheads. He missed a couple, but it wasn't at 30 all. It wasn't at 40-30. It was, love 30 or 30 love if he had the advantage. So again, and we talked about that earlier on, where if, Castro and Pejic can just stay close, it might take away some of the, free-flowing creativeness of Leon and Muoio. Just to remind everyone out there that's watching, or if you're just tuning in, on the left side of the top of your screen there with the blue headband is Ethan Leon and his partner, who just caught the ball and is making his way up to the net now. With the gray top and black sweatpants is Matt Muoio. And you see there with the blue hat and the white top is Antonio Pejic on the left side of the screen on the bottom. And his partner with the red shirt on is Jose Castro. I'll tell you, Steve, as we talk about the game growing year in and year out, part of that is all four of these guys on the court are all rackets professionals. As we mentioned earlier, Ethan Leon is the director of paddle tennis at Waynesboro Country Club. His partner, Matt Muoio, is a director of adult racket sports at Radley Run Country Club. And again, their opponents, Jose Castro is assistant director of rackets at the Middlesex Club in Darien, Connecticut. And with the blue hat there, Antonio Pejic is the head tennis pro at the Manerson Club.
Leon really looking for opportunities to move forward. But that's the risk, right? Put yourself a little bit out of position if Muoio's not on the same page.
And Steve, I think a couple of things that we're seeing here early on in the third set where you know, at the net, Leon isn't getting to hitting more of the overhead, so it would be on the right side of your screen here, over to Muoio's left. You know, where earlier on they were switching out right away and he was getting over to that side of the court. And even from the baseline, you know, we watched now a couple points where Matt Muoio has been over in that ad side of the court for maybe a little bit longer than they would want, according, you know, going with their plan, strategy, and their playing scheme.
15-40.
Yeah, that's I mean, the ball got in a really difficult spot. But these are the
well
shots.
spotted overhead, yeah.
Matt Muoio down double break point, hits 2 slash ground strokes. High cutters. I think if you're Castro and Page, you like seeing that, right?
You do. You know, and again, I don't think it was something where, you know, it was going to be hit for a winner. It was more the unpredictable spin. And again, you see Page here getting right on top of the net again, stuffing a volley back behind Leon.
He just looks dejected, right? He's got this look about him. And yeah, who would have seen this coming? But this is where you really, you know, you lean in, you even further extend the points if you're Castro and Page. You know, they're getting some unforced errors, and you don't want to see them pressing and, you know, being the one to sort of miss first. So,
and I think for Muoio and Leon, you know, part of the frustration is that they're not winning points the way they were earlier on in this match. Somehow, you know, Castro and Page have figured out a way how to sort of weather the storm and not give opportunities for Muoio and Leon to win, flat out win points. And again, part of it is I really feel like Page and Castro have changed the speed and tempo of this match.
But, you know, Dave, when we were watching the first set and a half, we kept saying they weren't doing a lot of things wrong, right?
No,
we were,
not at all.
Give Leon the cutter, give them those sort of, you know, big offensive balls. They got a couple nicks. They got one service nick on a sudden deuce point. It was a lot closer. You kept talking about the point differential. So it almost set up that maybe there was a false sense of confidence that Leon and Muoio had, that they weren't as far ahead as they thought.
Right.
And you're right, whether Castro and Page intentionally slowed it down, they've just played a really solid, methodical match and made Leon and Muoio beat them. And it worked for a set and a half, and now for about a set, it's gone the other way. So I think there's going to be another momentum change here, but right now, they got to find a way.
And I know they probably don't want to do it, but, you know, right now, if I'm Leon and Muoio, I think they kind of have to play a couple of slower points and maybe get their feet back under them and get into a little bit more of a rhythm, because, you know, right now, it's, again, we know they like playing fast, but right now they're just playing impatient. They're not playing fast. I think they're playing impatient. They're forcing some shots, and it's causing some, you know, early on in the point, unforced errors.
Yeah, you see the point before Muoio goes to the other sort of high cutter. Page chases it down, hits an unreturnable ball into Leon's corner. Further dejects Leon, and then Matt Muoio. I like that eye formation. Castro just staring him right in the face from the center of the court. Matt overthinks it, right? He generates a little more offense than he has and sort of punts it back into the screen. So this is as much a mental swing as it is the last few games look really mental for Leon and Muoio.
If we go back to the look at the points won from court director, Castro and Page are up 14 points now in this match. And up until the middle of the second set, they, it wasn't a large margin, but, they won more points than Page and Castro had.
Yeah, got to 6 or 7, the point differential, I think, towards Leon and Muoio at one point, probably earlier in the second set. Yeah, so they were down 3-2, right? I think their first sudden deuce point they won was to get back to 3-all. I may not have that right, but I think that's right. So down 3-2, now rattled off, right? 4 games to win that set, and then, of course, the first 3 here. So just a big swing.
And you see Leon is really trying to move around and move in a little bit and trying to really get involved, but he just has to be careful because Page is getting so close to the net that he's just hitting stuff volleys every time. It's kind of like that fine line of trying to get involved. Look at that amazing shot. And, it's kind of, I chuckle because, like, why wouldn't he hit that shot for a winner?
Yeah.
At this stage of the match.
Game Castro pass. They need the third set 4-love.
A little self-inflicted, but Castro and Page are like refusing to make mistakes.
Yeah, no,
and obviously they can feel it. They're just not missing, and they're playing really well while they're not missing, right? But they're not going for a lot. Their positioning's really good. Leon can't find the court.
And again, I think part of it is the pressure that Page is putting on him by being on top of that net. Yeah, I think this second and third set, I mean, even in the beginning, there's an unforced error because I was about to say, how Page's net play has really changed the course of this match.
Yeah, and Leon and Muoio are just trying to win points. They just keep trying to end points, pulling the trigger really early.
Steve, it's a silly game we play with these momentum swings.
I was just looking at PTIs. It's funny. So it's a -29 versus a -15. So not that at this level the PTI means a lot. Page hasn't played a ton deep into some of the tour events like the other 3 have. But yeah, it's very interesting. I love the pace of these balls. Just make Muoio do something. That ball right there by Page, it's got to be so frustrating. Well,
all right,
it took
little,
that.
Maybe a little positive energy off the left court winner there. I'll tell you, Steve, we're noticing now that Page on the right side in the white pullover up at the net, he's really trying to get to the right side of the screen up top there. And they really look like that's sort of going to be their setup. And, it's interesting because he's kind of, by design, more of the overhead hitter from that position, but he's hitting a lot of volleys. Great play there by Matt Muoio to set up a break point here at sudden deuce point. And that's, again, we talked about where they were doing that earlier on with the, kind of dinking and blitzing.
I was just going to say, it felt like a huge point. And those last three, of course, went very quickly back the other direction. So still a pretty commanding lead, 4-1 in the third set. But the momentum swing's coming at some point.
Right.
They had 40-15 in that game, so they had 3 game points for 5-love. And now I think, we have Ethan Leon serving. Is that right? Yeah.
And listen, if you're Leon and Muoio, until you shake hands, you have a chance.
Yeah, because at some point the pressure flips. I don't think it's flipped yet, but these next couple points are going to sort of show us the mindset.
I think if Muoio Leon can win this game, again, we talk about scoreboard pressure. I think you're going to see some scoreboard pressure that may have an impact.
What a nice softie into the corner.
Yeah, that was well executed. I mean, he took a big swing, nipped the side of the ball, and really put a lot of spin on that and changed pace for that ball to die in the corner. That was more of a good, well-used speed for that overhead more than it was spin.
The other adjustment that's a little bit more subtle, Page has not let any Leon serves get into that corner. He got caught. He got aced 2 or 3 times by sort of a softie into the nick, and he's sort of moved himself over and been willing to just sort of hit that block return to sort of start the point, but not get caught. That stayed in.
Left 30.
All right, now you dig deep if you're Castro and Page. You make them earn this point. I was going to say, Matt Muoio's going to look for a dink and blitz opportunity. Or that.
Yeah. Just to say, you're not just going to bloop the ball back to me.
It's really slappy. It's an effective, forehand.
Oh, what a get!
He's almost got to hit him with that because it's going to come super hot off the screen. Yeah. But that's what they needed to do. Go deep into the point. Make them force some offense. Make them look for an opportunity that may or may not exist. Actually, Matt Muoio played a great point. Try, fake the dink and blitz, hit the big forehand that went through, a little hot, and then, predicted the up and down. But there he goes, moves over, takes that serve off the table. Same thing here, just don't make an error.
And Steve, I'll tell you what I really like about Castro and Page is that, you know, they're not really playing defensive. They're still going for their shots. They're still playing like they were, you know, from the start of this match. So, you know, hats off to them that, you know, now with even having a little bit of a lead for the first time in a while, that, you know, they're still going, they're still playing to win. They're not trying not to lose.
Yeah, honestly, they've played well from the beginning. And Muoio and Leon just played the big points in that first set and a half really well. Obviously, a 5-1 sudden deuce lead they took, but they, you know, we saw 3 or 4 unbelievable cutters and drop, you know, winners by Leon. But yeah, they've just sort of kept playing their game. Yeah, don't overthink it. Step up the line. 21-point deficit, or point differential, yeah.
Would you have ever imagined that an hour ago?
Nice boring point.
I was just going to say that, you know, it's like they're basically right now, Castro and Page are saying, okay, if you want to win this match, you're basically going to have to hit 7 games worth of winners right now, or 6 games worth of winners. But, you know, we're not doing anything to set you up to hit winners. And the problem is, you know, how many balls can you drive in a row when you're down 1-5? And there's prevent from winning offense right there. You know, I think they kind of lulled themselves to sleep a little bit.
All right. Yeah, this may give a little bit of energy to Muoio. I think this would be more frustrating for Leon to sort of play these very nicely placed defensive balls. Muoio may be enjoying it.
Right.
So, Dave, you said this a couple games ago. For the most part, they haven't changed what they've done and haven't necessarily played, you know, not to lose. This gets a little bit borderline, right?
Yeah.
This gets a little. This is a little bit different. This is now a different, which in some ways makes sense. In other ways,
it doesn't.
You run the risk of losing energy, right, and losing the vibe and the momentum,
right,
and sort of the way the points were constructed, having the big shots you were hitting. Last couple games, Page hit some really big ground strokes, missed. Yeah, Leon's his head's not on the court at the moment.
And I'll tell you, Steve, the bad news if you're Castro and Page is that Leon and Muoio are not showing any interest in trying to force play right now. So, Steve, the only thing, I think if you're Castro and Page at this stage of the game, and to your point earlier on, it's, you know, it's almost like they're, you know, sort of slowing it down, and like we saw there, maybe a little bit too slow. But I want to say, I think at this stage of the game, if you're Castro and Page, you almost want to hit shots like to bait Leon and Muoio into trying shots, no? All right, so we have a break point here for Leon and Muoio. Very interesting watching how the speed of this match has changed in sort of the later stage of this third set. All right, so we're going to have a sudden deuce match point. Number one for Page and Castro.
All right, so
yeah, we're here. We're slowly getting closer to a match point. We are at a match point. It took a little bit, you know. It's definitely a slowdown right now going on out here. But you know, Castro and Page do have a set, not a set point. They have a match point, and ironically, it's a sudden deuce point.
yeah, if you're Muoio and Leon, this gives you a huge, obviously, energy boost if you can find a way to win this point. Because now if you're Castro and Page, you have to figure out how to turn back on some of your... Oh, he gets the neck. Nice cover. Yeah, nice decision there by Matt Muoio. I felt like he might have pulled the trigger, but it wasn't the right ball.
Like, that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier. Like, that's not the greatest overhead that you want to be trying, but at this stage of the game, you know, when Leon and Muoio are willing to just lob every ball back, like, do you try to bait them into something?
Yeah, Leon's made them hit a couple really, and there's another, he's made him hit a couple really stressful place volleys. He just runs the risk that he gets out of position.
So as much as Leon's moving around here, he's just got to make sure that he doesn't get caught moving up when Muoio decides to drive one.
Oh, absolute softy into the corner. Nice roller. Not over yet, right? Let's take another look at it here. Yeah, that ball just the perfect pace into the corner, just dead.
And again, they just have to be, they have to be careful here. Again, they can't, you know what, I may like them playing this game from the baseline instead of just, you know, pushing those overheads back.
All right, so now you're returning. And, you know, can't get that. Little pep in the step on Matt Muoio, right? You see him walking back quickly to the baseline. And Leon's staying back. Right, so they're choosing to give up the net. Muoio moved forward on the last one, but Leon stays back. I think they like that setup to put that pressure on. Now they come in on
30-15.
Steve, this could get interesting to say the least.
I think it's already there. that last, I was gonna say that last, you know, defend by Castro wasn't as hard as I think his feet made it seem. I think he sort of moved the wrong way for the first step, and the ball sort of naturally came back into him. I don't know, it may have hit that seam, I'm not sure, but it looked a lot tougher than I think it should have been. So I think we're already in a very difficult situation, and even though it's 5-2, it feels like the pressure has. Oh yeah, you just got to.
Well, and again, I think to your point earlier on, where like I'd been talking about how I liked how Castro and Page have been playing like the same way as to what got them there, and then all of a sudden they just went into that slowdown and they weren't.
Here we go, game point. 2 game points.
To get to 5-3 here.
They trail the third set, 5-3.
All right, Page goes to get a drink of water. I think he should then walk back and have a conversation. There you go. Yeah, at least if it's an affirming sort of, let's go, here we go, settle. But the question is, what does that mean? They're serving, which means they're going to most likely have the net. Do they want to get back into this game?
The only thing, Steve, I don't really love about this strategy right now from Castro and Page is they're putting zero pressure on Leon and Muoio. And so basically what you're doing is you're banking on Leon and Muoio are going to miss simple balls and enough of them for you to win the match. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's almost like it's difficult to go back to how they were playing because then they're under pressure for not making mistakes where they were playing sort of smart, opportunistic offense. They were playing, disciplined points, but the cadence was different. Like the energy of the shots was different. So now going back to that, you make one error, you make a second error, and all of a sudden you've lost it. Right?
Well, I just think with them playing this style, Steve, I just think they're assuming more of the pressure because every point they lose, it's mounting more and more and more. Like, and again, can you bank on that Matt Muoio is going to do that 4 more times? Or 3 more times now?
Yeah, and the tricky part of, okay, that's a nicely placed ball. Leon got him a couple points to go on that. The problem with the temperatures today, the ball's playing hot. So all right, reset.
I'll tell you, it's interesting to see how much Muoio and Leon want to play fast-paced, shot-making type of a match, and to see them slow the game down this much right now.
Yeah, I think they slowed it down to the wrong person. Matt Muoio, pre-Ethan Leon, was one of the most patient, steady, disciplined players who was willing to play that match that went 3-4 hours. So they slowed it down. They did exactly what you said they weren't doing. They started doing. Now it's are Muoio and Leon able to just sort of hang in there and get a couple breaks? But at some point you wonder, Dave, does the energy of these points, oh, we almost missed it. Does the energy of these points go back? How can it go back? What's that look like? Do both teams start playing again or not?
And again, like I said, the only thing that I just don't really love about this is that there's no pressure on Leon or Muoio to even attempt or do anything. Listen, again, I think it could work against them, but I think at this stage of the game, Page and Castro, they may have to hit some shots to entice Leon and Muoio to go for shots.
I agree.
Either that or they have to start aiming at the nick a lot more and trying to hope that they get a
You know,
nick.
it's the one thing I was going to say. They're not really hitting big swingers towards the nick.
Like I said, I can't imagine Muoio and Leon are going to miss 4 balls off of this pace of play.
Oh, that's a really nice spot. Missed it. That's a good point. And that's sort of...
Again, they put pressure on them somehow.
They did. No, it just took them 78 balls to get there in that point. Yeah, I don't think Matt Muoio is going to pull the trigger. But he did.
Oh.
And honestly, it was not the hardest volley.
No, no.
Little indecision on a couple of them, but I like them lobbing over Castro to sort of make Page move and open up the court. This is where they tend to create opportunities for themselves. That's a high ball. Missed it.
Dirty all.
I agree.
Does he drive the return, Steve?
All right, we could be here for a minute. Is it gonna be Leon and Muoio pulling the trigger?
I mean, I don't think any of these shots are really enticing them to do it. And by the way, they've won more games doing this than they have playing their style in the third set. So if you're not being enticed or forced to do it, why change?
Yeah, they were getting errors in that string in the beginning of this set, but it wasn't them playing this way. It was them sort of playing normal,
right?
You know, mixed offense, defense. They're defending really well, but they weren't.
And again, if Muoio and Leon aren't going to pull the trigger, again, you almost have to hit shots that sort of really force them to pull the trigger on it.
Sorry.
40-30.
All right, match point number 2, ladies and gentlemen.
Here we go. There's going to be 2 match points here. You see Taya Page on the sideline with B. Lopez.
Drop shot. Ooh.
Missed it. Wow. We didn't see that coming, but a great match by Castro and Page. They played really, really well, and then this energy shift happened, and it got really interesting and dicey, which, you know, I get the intent. They may have given them another lease on life. But here's some of the statistics, Dave. What do you think? What do you see?
Absolutely. You know, I definitely, that match didn't finish the way that we thought it would go and the way it started. But hats off to Castro and Page. They kind of weathered the storm in the beginning of the shot making of Leon and Muoio, and they were able to hold on, and off to the semifinals they go.
All right, so there's more paddle to come. We have both the women's and the men's semis still to come. Women's semis are getting going shortly, and the men's semis to follow not before 6 p.m. Eastern. So for Dave Broderick, I'm Steve Sullivan, and that's a wrap.
At Corient, wealth management begins and ends with you. We believe the more personal the solution, the more powerful the result. We treat your goals as our own. We never lose focus on the life you want to build. And our experienced advisors design custom-built strategies to help you get there. It's time for a wealth management experience as sophisticated as you are. It's time for Corient.
The business owners that I'm working with have entrusted Corient in this work because we're really focused on supporting them in their important endeavors. They're functioning every day in their zone of genius, and their expectation of us is we're doing the same. My name is Anna Diaz. I'm a partner and wealth advisor at Corient. When we think about the work we're doing for our clients, we think about first financial, absolutely. It is not uncommon that our very successful business owners and clients are making disjointed decisions. Our job is to provide a proactive strategy so the filter in which they make these decisions is informed. Second is the emotional load. Our clients often are asking themselves, what am I missing? Our job is to remove that mental load so they feel that their strategy is optimized, is simplified, and is executed cleanly. And the third is generational. Absolutely, there is technical design that goes into that, but it is also the thoughtful impact they want to have with what they've created.